This might be the best press machine for a home gym. When you're limited on space, you need something that can do more than one thing, right? Enter the GMWD 4-in-1 FID bench press shoulder press machine version 8. I'd make fun of the name, but we've already got too many things called the Apex. And you gotta get it right on your 8th try, right? It's an incline press, a decline press, a bench press, and a shoulder press. And it's actually pretty good in some ways. But so was version 7, the 3-in-1, and this one's a lot cheaper. But hey, I've got discount codes to both of these, so it doesn't matter to me which one you buy. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing, checking out our Patreon, and using our affiliate links, as that is the best way to support the channel. If you're not familiar with these machines, they both essentially work the same way, but this is the more adjustable, refined version. So on both, you have two converging arms that can work independently, and this arcing, this converging pattern feels great if you're going for that squeeze at the top or that stretch at the bottom. And it also feels more natural to me, like I'm pressing an actual dumbbell versus a barbell where it's a stricter path. This is also a simpler, more controlled movement versus a barbell or a dumbbell, making it easier to focus on that mind-muscle connection. Also, I can safely train to failure because if anything happens, I can just get up and out of that machine, making these work great for hypertrophy work. My only issue right now is I'm not getting a great convergence at the top, and I'd like this to go a little bit lower. Luckily, adjusting the height on this is super simple. There's just a single pop pin and a handle in the back, and then a gas piston that assists you in raising or lowering the arms. It's balanced pretty well, so at 50 pounds, it'll feel like it's almost weightless. With anything heavier than that, it'll slowly drop down, which is fine because then we can just curl it back into position. Now, this might be a little bit low of a position for me, might be a little difficult to get out of the hole. So what I do is I just block the starting position. You can really use anything for this. These are just old chunks of 2x4 I had lying around, but I mean, Sam Sulek uses collars, so really whatever will work. Now, all this does is raise my starting position so that I can get into position without tearing my shoulders out of their sockets. And then once I lift off, they'll fold out of the way, and you can see I've got a much better convergence at the top, and at the bottom, I can go as low as I want, whatever's comfortable, and if anything were to happen, I can still safely get out of the machine. This to me feels great for incline pressing. It's also super quick and easy to set up and adjust, and that block mod is pretty common even in commercial gyms. But who knows, maybe on version 15, they'll give us a foot lever system to help us out of that starting position. Now, if this doesn't work for you, maybe it's uncomfortable on your shoulders, you can actually rotate these inward to give us a neutral grip. And I think this feels pretty good, but these handles actually rotate 360 degrees. You can lock them in on 30-degree increments. Now, all I've got to do is slide my bench out a little bit. Little home gym ASMR for you, which is actually a thing. I judge you for it, but we make content like that on our other platforms. So who am I to judge? And now I've got a neutral grip, great convergence at the top. And I think now that it's all set up, this actually feels pretty good. To set up for flat bench, I'm just gonna pull this bench out some. And I think the biggest upgrade they made over the V7 is that you can adjust all the parts independently here. So the seat pad, the back pad, and the bench positioning can all be adjusted. So on the 3-in-1, there are times that no matter how I adjust it, because there's not much adjustability, I just can't get into a comfortable position. But with so much freedom in your setup here, I think on the 8, it's just gonna work for a much broader range of people. What I mean by that is if I come over to the 7 and I try to incline press, once I've set up, the handles are a little bit far back. So what I end up doing is having to flare my elbows so I can stack my joints. But now this is an uncomfortable pressing position for my shoulders, but for Winnie, it actually works pretty well and everything lines up fine. The issue is outside of adjusting the height or the pad angle, you don't have any other adjustability. So this slides on a rail and then it is automatically adjusting these two angles. So I cannot change the grip and I cannot change the bench positioning. So if this position doesn't work for you, or like me, this one might not work particularly well, you're kind of out of luck. You can't really do anything about it. Now, we are a little more forgiving on this one because it is a more budget-oriented machine, but when it comes down to it, I just like pressing on the V8 a lot better. As for flat pressing, so these are gonna have the same low or bottom position. So that starting position is gonna be the same height no matter what you do. I'm gonna set these to 30 degrees because that's how I like to press when I'm using dumbbells. It feels a little bit better on my shoulders. So that's what I'm gonna do here, emulate that same position. Now I've got a great low starting position. If this is too low for you, remember that block mod will work. Now on a barbell, this is about as low as I could go. But you can see here, just like with dumbbells, I can get a little bit lower if I want to. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. You could just set your starting position a little bit higher. I'm getting a great range of motion. The machine is smooth. The convergence feels great. So it's not too narrow at the top or not too wide at the bottom. If you're going for that stretch at the bottom, if you're going for that contraction at the top, I think this whole thing feels great as long as you can ignore this massive pad gap, which you're not gonna be able to ignore because your is gonna end up in it. One thing I will say about both of these machines is it's going to depend on how they fit you. So this 18.5-inch pad height might be a little bit too high for some people. It may be difficult for you to plant your feet flat, although Winnie at 5'6" doesn't have any issues. Your typical bench is around 17 inches tall, but where you're more likely to have issues is when you're shoulder pressing. So let's set that up. So on the version 7, you can see my hands are a lot further back than I'd really like. This is just not a comfortable pressing position for me. Oh, can you hear my joints popping? So when I'm using dumbbells, I like my hands out in front of me a little bit, and I like to angle them a little bit. I can drop this down to 75 degrees. Both of these machines are set to 85 right now. Now this is a much more comfortable pressing position, but on the 8, we're still set to 85 degrees here. I've got the grips angled, which is, like I said, what I prefer on dumbbell pressing. And this right here is a much more comfortable pressing position because my hands are out in front of me, just like it would be on dumbbells. I can still adjust the pad angles. It just has a lot more adjustability and freedom in how you set it up. But we still have a really good resistance profile here. But one of the things my wife noticed is that the 8 has a higher starting weight than the 7. So on the 8, it's about 16.5 pounds per handle, and the 7 is about 11.5 pounds. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much to the guys in the comments who tell me I don't look like I lift, but to some people, that can really be a significant difference. That difference is because the 8 is built on 3x3 steel tubing, whereas the 7 is built on 2x2. They're actually using the same exact gauge steel, but I'm sure we all did plenty of area moment of inertia calculations in engineering school. So we know this results in a much more stable, rigid build, which is also why it's got a higher weight capacity. Actually, if you want to get really nerdy on both these machines, since one arm is a little bit longer than the other, you have one arm weighing about half a pound more, which I know is going to trigger some people. Either way, you can put 300 pounds per arm on the 8 and 150 pounds per arm on the 7, but you're not really going to be able to get that much weight on here unless you're one of those influencers who all seem like they have the same thin weight plates because they all copied me. What can I say? I'm a bit of a trendsetter. It probably has nothing to do with the fact that we all got these for free in exchange for reviews, just like we got these machines free. But you're really not gonna need that much weight on here anyway. The only reason I bring it up is because on the 7, one of the big complaints was that the components have a lot of play in them. And as you add weight to that, it becomes more obvious. The 8 still has some play between the components and in the arms, but it definitely has a more stable build, and I think it's the better pressing platform. But one thing Winnie noticed, or one thing she does, is she actually likes to place her hands here when she's pressing, and it's oddly comfortable because the bottom of these pivots is mostly flat, so it works pretty well. The reason she does that is because the spacing of these handles is the same exact place as where she'd place her hands on a barbell. So I think they should have placed the pivots, the handles out here, and then made them longer like you'd see on a hammer strength machine. Normally, I'd say that's a deal breaker, but to be honest, after I saw her doing it, I tried placing them here as well. And I actually think I prefer it because it works rather well, although it's not ideal. And another thing is if you're super tall, you can see you might run out of space to converge if you've got really long arms, which means you also can't spin these inward because the handles are gonna hit. I'd still take it over the 7 though, or maybe we should call this the 7.1, because after its initial release, they did upgrade quite a few things on this. So they swapped out the vinyl and padding. This is much better than the kind of crappy stuff they started with. And they tweaked the angles. They had some really odd angles, like it would go from flat to 19 degrees. Now it goes to 15 degrees, and it just has more normal numbers. And they've marked the positioning here, which makes it easier to figure out where you're putting this. They've also marked the back holes, but it's still hard to read the heights on both of these machines. And on the 7, it doesn't like to go in the top position, which means it doesn't like to come out of it either. Version 7, the 3-in-1, also can't do decline, so let me show you how that works. Okay, this one can't really decline super well either. So you can see right here, this is as low as this can get. This is the same exact height that I would have benched at. I can't set this any lower, so it's not a great starting position. I'm not getting a very good stretch. We can also only go to -10 degrees. So, I mean, it works. It's just easily the worst functionality of this. And also, my is really stuck in this gap right now. Still though, I think this is the better overall machine. The padding and vinyl on this is an upgrade over version 7's already upgraded vinyl. This is basically the same thing you'd find on your typical adjustable bench. It's grippy and supportive, and this just has a more stable, robust build. Some of that's because of the 3x3 tubing, but they've also kind of beefed up the overall frame as well, but their footprints are actually about the same size. Just keep in mind, you do need space around the machine so you can load and unload plates. And you're probably not putting this right up against a wall because you need some space behind it, because that's the easiest way to adjust the height. Now you can come over here and reach around, but it's a little awkward because, as you can see, the machine does like to get a little bit grabby. These both have the same amount of back angles. I mean, I do think they probably could have just cut a few more holes to give us a few more options, but this one's superior just because of its adjustability. Since everything adjusts independently, you just have so many more options and how you can set it up, and the build quality is better overall too. Outside of these cheap stickers on the handle here, but you've got multiple finish options versus no finish options. It's just this matte black. This is a metal chrome sleeve that's longer versus this cheaper, shorter plastic sleeve. And overall, it's just a more refined build, but it has to be. The 7 costs just under $600 when using code GLUCK to save at GMWD, whereas the 8 is $1140 when using code GLUCK. That's twice the price, and I'm not sure this is twice the machine. I prefer it. I think this is probably currently the best press machine for a home gym, but that's a significant price increase. Although GMWD does love running sales, and who knows, maybe if you wait 6 months, a version 9 will come out. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much to our Patreons. This job can be a little bit tricky, but you guys make it worthwhile. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.